We love
Let me go over to the
hip-hop.
Six Tails channel. Big salute to Six Tails. Something kind of threw me for a loop with this video here. And the video in question is Toronto's Deadliest gang, Malvern crew, Galloway boys, and Chester Lee. Now, the thing is with this video, the thing is with this video, before I actually get to the video itself, I feel like I seen it on the channel, on this channel here, like maybe about 2 weeks ago. Right? Let me check on something, because even the date on this, it kind of threw me for a loop. And big salute to Six Tails once again. I sent him a DM to try to find out. It's 2 weeks ago. If you go to his channel, it's the newest video. But I seen like somebody posting about it on maybe Reddit or Instagram somewhere, like, yo, Six Tails just dropped again or whatever. But I saw this video already. I never reacted to it on a live stream, but I saw this video and then maybe it disappeared. Because I feel like I would have reacted to this shit already. Yeah, 100K views. Yo, these guys do crazy. This is also proof when people say, ain't nobody give a fuck about Toronto shit. That's cap. That is cap. All right. So let's play this over here.
What's the worst place in Toronto?
Scarborough. Scarborough. Literally Scarborough.
What you used to tell me? Stay away for the Scarborough guy. No back door, you lying.
Well, Toronto police are investigating a shooting in Scarborough that left 3 people seriously injured.
Toronto police continue the hunt for as many as half a dozen suspects in a brazen daylight shooting in Scarborough.
Police also announced arrests in connection to another mass shooting that took place at a Scarborough pub back in March.
That'd be nuts.
Scarborough has always been talked about more than it's been understood. In the news, it's often reduced to crime and headlines that paint the entire borough with the same brush. To social media, it's basically a meme, a place where every caption starts with Scarborough man, and every comment section is full of jokes about never going east of Victoria Park. This video is about tracing where that narrative came from and how it grew. By looking at Scarborough's gang culture and the moments that shaped public perception, we're breaking down why the media came to see Scarborough the way it does, and how those stories grew into a reputation that still follows the borough till this day.
It's been a bad year for gun crime in the country's largest city.
Malvern is not a bad area, we just have some bad people.
That 90s shit.
In the language of the urban analyst, this is a troubled community. Its name is Malvern. It keeps ending up in the news in stories about violent crime.
Long before the headlines, Scarborough was already divided by invisible lines. Tension started in school hallways, apartment stairwells, and on crowded bus rides home. By the early 2000s, those unspoken borders were firmly in place, and certain neighborhoods had begun to carry reputations that never faded. At the center of that early era was a name that would echo for decades: Malvern. Built in the mid to late 1970s in the northeast end of the borough, Malvern was designed around opportunity, but as the population grew, government funding and services didn't keep pace. Poverty became concentrated, and by 2005, Malvern was officially designated one of Toronto's priority neighborhoods. By then, Malvern's name was already traveling.
Yo, low-key, because I've gone through like the area, but I've never pulled up on any of the blocks. This shit looks, even though it's townhouses and stuff like that, not a bunch of like tall, high-rise buildings, this shit looks run down, and this is like, this is years ago.
Going back to the mid-1990s, groups of local youth, many of them with Jamaican, Trinidadian, Tamil, and Guyanese roots, had begun forming crews tied to specific blocks and streets like Impringham, Crow Trail, and Wixon Trail. What started as unorganized groups hanging out gradually evolved into something more structured. By the late 90s, members of what became known as the Malvern crew were heavily involved in drug dealing and break-in-enters. But over time, news headlines increasingly tied the area to gun violence. But what really set Malvern apart wasn't just crime, it was longevity. While gangs in other parts of the city faded or broke apart, Malvern's identity survived. When older members went to jail or disappeared from the streets, younger ones stepped into the space they left behind. By the mid-2010s, a new generation had taken over the block, including movements like 44, which also doubled as a rap collective tied to artists such as Sav, Dash, and KS Bands. This generation didn't just inherit the Malvern name, they inherited the beef.
Yo, Malvern has a long history. When I think about and big salute to Honcho Hoodlum. When I think about Honcho Hoodlum's times, which is like 2012, those times back 2013, and then even before him, like the Sam G's and all that, and different people before him, to now, it has a long legacy of thuggery, bro. Holy shit.
Often referred to as the Orton Park Bloods, this rival set sat close enough to Malvern that people crossed paths constantly, and friction built through individual disputes and overlapping friend groups. The ongoing tension between the 44 movement and Orton Park carried real consequences, costing multiple lives over the years. One of the most well-known cases was the murder of Orton Park-based rapper Dope Boy DQ, whose death was later tied in court to LB, an individual identified by police as being affiliated with the 44 movement. But Malvern's most intense and infamous rivalry would eventually be with the Galloway Boys, a street crew rooted in the apartment buildings along Galloway near Kingston Road that would later become known citywide.
Make no mistake, gangs rule the territory, and the so-called Galloway Boys have owned these parts for a long time.
The roots of the Galloway Boys stretch back well before the violence of the early 2000s.
Walked up in the
Forming
game
in the
right
1980s, largely among Jamaican immigrant families living in the public housing complexes along Galloway Road. At the time, Scarborough, like many parts of Toronto, was seeing the early rise of street gangs tied to economic hardship and the spread of crack cocaine.
CBS News reporter Victoria Carderi has the latest dramatic evidence tonight that crack use is spreading wider, far from the cities and closer to the children.
Former Toronto police officer Ross McLean later recalled that this period marked a turning point for the city, as crack made drug dealing more accessible and profitable in impoverished neighborhoods. Before that,
it's literally everybody has the same story in Toronto. Late 80s, mid to late 80s, early 90s, everything was cool. It was still the hood, but when that crack cocaine hit the scene, everything skyrocketed. Everybody started getting more money, more killings. Everything became more.
Drugs like cocaine and heroin were expensive and controlled by fewer players. Crack changed that overnight. In those years, residents referred to the area simply as G-Way, and people identified themselves as North Side or South Side depending on which side of Kingston Road they lived on. The name Galloway Boys was originally coined by police, but it was eventually adopted by the group itself.
This resulted in a violent confrontation between a number of gang members from the Galloway Boys and from the Malvern crew that involved a number of firearms.
Over time, the Galloway Boys splintered into multiple subsets.
Let me show y'all something, because they did give, and we'll get back to this in just a second, because I did, and just also a reminder to the people out there. Tyshawn Riley, 20 years.
We love hip hop.
It's part of the theatrics, brother. And it's like, yeah, man, these are the little railroads that continuously happen. And right now, everything, all the organized crime, it's so bad.
So this is Tyshawn Riley. He was allegedly said to be the leader of the Galloway Boys. I interviewed him years ago now. This is a clip from like 10 months ago, but I interviewed him maybe about 2 years ago now, from jail. He's got 20 years, but actually gave him more than that. You know what I'm saying? I think they gave him 3 life sentences.
Affects me right now, up to today. I'm still a gang member in their eyes because I've organized crime. I've been in jail 19 years. You can't tell me I'm no gang member. I'm not running around doing anything.
Let me ask you something based on that, because I don't know if you're aware, right? Because, unfortunately, you've been gone for a long space of time, and, YouTube has evolved over the years. But there's so many different, documentary piece videos and stuff like that. And, your name has popped up in a lot of different videos. Has anybody ever put you on, like when you talk to people on the phone, like, yo, fam, I seen you in this YouTube video? And if so, how do you feel about those videos?
Yo, so man tell me all the time, like my people them tell me all the time when I talk to them on, right? There's bloggers, there's people, they put out stuff about you. There's part 1, there's part 2, there's stuff coming out about you. I'm gonna laugh because why? Look, you're getting exclusive that shows all the what they're saying is a sham again.
Hope you're enjoying the video. Do me a quick favor while you're here and smash that like button so we can break the algorithm. And join the comment gang and subscribe. It's free. What he said. All right, salute to Tyshawn Riley, yo. That was a big link up right there. Let's get back to the video, though.
What's the worst place in Toronto?
Scarborough. Scarborough, literally Scarborough.
More reckless and much more dangerous.
What once allowing Galloway aligned shooters to operate with unprecedented firepower.
Should be right here.
Throwbacks as a small, tightly knit assassination squad aimed at exacting revenge. What followed was a brutal escalation. In the weeks after Allen's death, Eric Mutiza, a 23-year-old Malvern-based crack dealer, was gunned down, and the rivalry between Malvern and Galloway intensified into an all-out gang war. The conflict grew even deadlier after a major firearms theft in December 2003, when dozens of rifles, machine guns, and handguns were stolen from a Scarborough gun collector's home while the owner was out of the country. Prosecutors later argued that the influx of those weapons dramatically shifted the balance of power on the streets, allowing...
What was that, 2012? I know. Repeat that. 2004, yes. I do remember that. That was a crazy time. I actually remember that vividly when there was like a big robbery of a bunch of guns and people were talking about, yo, that's going to heat up the streets. To be honest, I never really thought about it in the time because I was living there in real time. But in hindsight, they're kind of right.
After a major firearms theft in December 2003, when dozens of rifles, machine guns, and handguns were stolen from a Scarborough gun collector's home while the owner was out of the country. Prosecutors later argued that the influx of those weapons dramatically shifted the balance of power on the streets, allowing Galloway-aligned shooters to operate with unprecedented firepower. Sadly, throughout this gang war, many of the victims weren't even gang members, rather, innocent young men mistakenly targeted after being caught in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I'm glad that he said mistakenly targeted, right? Because what they try to put in those news articles, and I'm glad I even showed you guys this video of Tyshawn Riley. What they try to put in those articles and other documentaries is that the Galloway boys used to drive around Malvern just shooting innocents on purpose. Like it was, and listen, doesn't make it any better that they hit the people but astray by mistake. Okay, I'm not trying to excuse any type of shooting, but the way that they try to paint it in a lot of the media, they would say that they would drive through neighborhoods and say, yo, where you from? And if the person says they're from Malvern, they would just blast them on sight. So, and a lot of innocent people got hit that way. So I don't know if Six Tails is position or wording it in a more palatable or a nicer way, favoring the Galloway boys, but back in his other articles and other videos that I've seen back in the days, they just try to make it seem like these guys are just ruthlessly just looking for anybody who lived in that hood. So
one of them was Simeon Peter. On the afternoon of January 9th, 2004, 19-year-old Simeon Peter was walking his girlfriend to her Scarborough home when a man approached from behind, withdrew a pistol, and emptied the gun's magazine into the man's back. It was a case of mistaken identity. Peter had been misidentified as a Galloway boy by Warren Abbey, a member of the Malvern crew. The case of mistaken identity didn't end there. On March 3rd, 2004, members of the Galloway boys carried out a drive-by shooting at a busy Malvern intersection, firing from an SUV into another vehicle. Brenton Charlton, a 31-year-old restaurant manager with no gang ties, was killed, and his passenger Leonard Bell survived despite being shot multiple times. Investigators later...
There are innocents getting hit. Holy shit, man.
determined the attackers had mistakenly believed they were targeting Alton Anthony Reed, a man police had at one point considered a leading member of the Malvern crew. Court records later revealed that by late 2003, Reed had been trying to distance himself from the streets, fearing deportation and discussing plans to step down from the life. During the trial, the Crown star witness, Galloway Boys member Roland Ellis, testified that the killing was a direct result of the gang war sparked by the earlier death of Norris Allen, explaining how revenge and misdirected retaliation fueled a cycle of violence. In response to the growing violence tied to Scarborough crews in the early 2000s, Toronto police launched two major operations known as Project Impact and Project Pathfinder in May 2004. It was the first large-scale gang crackdown, and it was aimed squarely at the heart of the Malvern crew and Galloway Boys.
So these guys got the first large-scale gang crackdown. Like, I don't know if that's a stunt, but like they made it where like these niggas, the cops had to get their shit in gear.
Early one morning, police executed dozens of search warrants across the city, arresting 75 alleged gang members and laying nearly 600 charges and seizing 28 firearms and other evidence tied to ongoing shootings and drug offenses. Although the raids and arrests significantly disrupted the operations of both crews and forced older leaders off the street, by the early 2010s, these rivalries had entered a dangerous phase. The original leaders were aging out, but they still were able to make moves from inside their prison cells. They recruited a younger generation that was more volatile, growing up in an era
of Galloway Boys. The leadership was dismantled in 2004, but now younger members are trying to make a name for themselves.
And that's what's terrifying, because they're younger and they're wannabes, which make them more even reckless and brazen than king of reckless and brazenness.
And he says this new generation doesn't respect the old boundaries.
What we are looking at right now is something much more disorganized and much more reckless and much more dangerous.
What once might have been handled quietly was now public and permanent, turning online disrespect into real-world consequences. And by the summer of 2012, everything that had been building for years was about to collide.
Good morning, this is Breakfast Television. We will have the latest for you on this East End shooting.
News of the worst mass shooting in this city's history. Jarring
Mud thing, the dancing shooting.
Images of panic, fear, and disbelief.
Is this empty?
July 16th, 2012, a petty beef between rival gangs erupts in a barrage of bullets at a community barbecue on this street. 25 people were hit. 2 didn't survive. 14-year-old Cheyenne Charles and 23-year-old Joshua Yasse.
A block party was originally organized for July 15, 2012, at the Danzig Street housing complex by a resident as an afternoon barbecue for children in the community. In the days leading up to the event, however, the gathering took on a very different life online. Beginning around July 7th, a Twitter account linked to 19-year-old Galloway Boys member Nahum Segazab, aka Gifted, began promoting the event as a Hennessy block party.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna rewind this just quick fast because people told me in the comments, yo, why you keep on stopping the video? Because I'm not gonna sit here and just watch the man's video like and pull up my popcorn like as if I'm just sitting there at my house just watching videos. Like it's a reaction. But I will say this. I never knew the exact breakdown of exactly how it happened at that party. I do remember the news stories like crazy. And obviously there was articles that came out around that time. But the kind of information that homie from Six Tails gets is crazy. He got like the intimate details, the flyers, everything on how that Danzig shooting sparked off. So let's get to it.
Leading up to the event, however, the gathering took on a very different life online. Beginning around July 7th, a Twitter account linked to 19-year-old Galloway Boys member Nahum Segazab, aka Gifted, began promoting the event as a Hennessy block party. The posts promised a live DJ and dozens of bottles of Hennessy cognac, free for anyone who showed up. Over the course of a week, more than 24 open invitations were shared publicly and spread widely under the hashtag Hennessy Block Party. Due to a rainstorm, the event was delayed to Monday, July 16th, and officially began around 2 p.m. in the backyard of the original organizer. Early in the afternoon, it resembled what it was meant to be, a children's party. Tenants contributed food and activities, including face painting and an improvised water slide. Gifted handed out supplies and basketball. Children's portion of the event
Took a children's nice family event and turned it into like a historic shooting.
Supposed to end by 5 p.m., but by that point, adults had already begun gathering in the surrounding parking lot.
For the donation,
As the evening went on, the
Folly.
Galloway boys effectively took control of the area. By 7 p.m., alcohol was being openly consumed to loud hip-hop music, and by 8 p.m., more than 200 people packed into the complex's narrow laneway. Some residents, uneasy about the number of unfamiliar faces, took their children inside. One resident later described the scene as feeling like a jammed nightclub, with no room to move through the walkway. Multiple noise complaints were made to police, and bicycle patrol officers attended the scene, but the party was allowed to continue.
That's where they fucked up. And listen, I love my people, but the way that they describe that, a hall, or not a hallway, a pathway or an alleyway in between the buildings just ram up with people, that's a recipe for destruction right there. And I'm not saying that it's on my people, on any people's, bro. Like, that's way too many people. You know what I'm saying? If it was a community of a whole bunch of races, which the area, it's not only black people out there. There's a bunch of people out there. So it wasn't just only black people, but just that amount of people in a small alleyway, that's a recipe for destruction right there. That's nasty work. They should have said, yo, this is a fire violation, some shit, and like cut that off.
According to the CEO of Toronto Community Housing at the time, the event had not been sanctioned and should have ended before 9 p.m.
Oh,
As
Lord.
the crowd grew tighter in the laneway, tensions began to rise. Members of the Galloway boys started G-checking, confronting people they did not recognize and telling anyone believed to be from rival areas to leave. Among those confronted was 18-year-old Shaquan Mosquito, aka Bam Bam of the Malvern crew, who had arrived unarmed. He was ordered to leave by Nayat Segazab, aka Gritty, Gifted's 15-year-old brother, who threatened to shoot him if he did not go immediately. Angry at being forced out, Bam Bam sent a series of tweets urging others to come and shoot up the party. Shortly after 9 p.m., Gifted was warned about the threats.
Nigga, it's not even like this nigga sending DMs or sending phone calls, like private calls. There's tweets on the internet saying, yo, go shoot up the party. Bro, that would make my blood run cold if I open up my Twitter and I see, yo, go shoot up the party. If I'm just a patron, I'm leaving.
He armed himself with a .40 caliber handgun and told others to be ready for a possible shootout. Not long after, 17-year-old Fulorunso Owusu, aka Chaotic, a member of a group known as the Chester Lee Crew, arrived at the party. We'll dive more into that crew later in the video, but Chaotic was immediately confronted by Gifted, who displayed his gun and challenged Chaotic to fight if he didn't leave. At approximately 10:40 p.m., less than 2 minutes after arriving, Chaotic opened fire with a 9mm handgun, shooting Gifted twice, once in the arm and once in the abdomen.
Damn.
One bullet passed through Gifted and struck a bystander. As Gifted fell to the ground near 207 Danzig Street, he reached for his weapon and fired 11 rounds back at Chaotic as Chaotic retreated through the crowd, striking him once in the leg. At the same time, a third, unidentified shooter opened fire with an Uzi-style submachine gun, spraying 14 rounds into the densely packed crowd. In total, 24 bystanders were shot, 2 fatally, and 3 people were trampled as panic spread through the complex, including a pregnant woman.
Now to our... That is insane. That description right there, just even hearing it, and I've watched this video before, just rehearing it right now, and just the great storytelling that Six Tails does, that just made my heart beat, bro. Like, heartbeat faster. Like, just the imagery of one man's licks off the ting, shoots through a man, and hits a bystander. Okay, take that in. The bullet went through him and hit somebody else. So imagine the caliber of gun that the Gifted guy got hit with. And then he lets off 11 rounds in return. and then the next man lets back off 11 rounds. If I'm in the party, I don't even know what the fuck to do, bro. You don't even know where the bullets are coming from. They're coming from both sides. No matter what, people are getting hit, fam. This is just atrocious, fam. Like, the man them, like, that's just horrible, fam. Like, niggas be like, yo, you don't wish jail on niggas. Like, nah, y'all niggas need to sit down for that one, fam. I know niggas who might see this and get cheesed. I'm sorry, bro. That's fucking reckless. Disregard for human life, my guys. Holy shit, man. Nigga had a Uzi and you let it off in a crowd, fam. I know niggas be like, free the dogs and the demons. Nah, bro, that's recklessly irresponsible. You don't give a shit about nobody but yourself and whatever your gang got going on. Innocent people are getting hit. Youth them. Nah, bro. Nah, bro. Gonna need God, dog.
Breaking news from the East End. Numerous people have been shot in Scarborough. Safia Kambalia is now live at the scene. Safia?
Roger, a cameraman tell me they have numerous shots of victims. They've lost count. There's so many. Have a look. ETF is here on scene. Police officers just keep moving the perimeter wider and wider. There are countless ambulances. We heard report that EMS called in every single unit that they had. This is a massive scene.
The victims ranged in age from 22 months to 33 years old. Cheyenne Charles, just 14, was fleeing the initial gunfire when she ran directly into the line of fire from the third shooter. She was struck multiple times and collapsed, dying on the doorstep of 203 Danzig Street. Joshua Yasay, 23, a community mentor with an honors degree in criminology who hoped to become a police officer, was also killed when a bullet pierced his heart and lungs. It was never definitively determined whether he was shot by Gifted or the unidentified third gunman. A retaliatory shooting followed months later in Chester Lee on September 2nd. Police said 15-year-old Gritty tracked down Chaotic in retaliation for what he believed was Chaotic's attempt to kill his brother. Gritty located Chaotic riding a bicycle and shot him in the upper thigh, causing Chaotic to fall to the ground. According to court findings, Gritty then approached and aimed his gun at Chaotic's head, but the weapon jammed, allowing Chaotic to escape and be taken to hospital. The shooting triggered immediate police action. On September 3rd, a search warrant was executed at Chaotic's Chester Lee residence, resulting in cocaine trafficking charges. The following day, police carried out a search warrant at Gritty's home, where he was charged with 16 offenses, including attempted murder, weapons offenses, and cocaine-related charges. In the years following the Danzig Street shooting, the legal outcomes for those involved unfolded over a long and complex series of court proceedings. On April 11, 2014, Gifted pleaded guilty to 2 counts of manslaughter and 6 counts of aggravated assault. He admitted in court that by engaging in the gunfight, he bore responsibility for all of the deaths and injuries that followed, even if he did not fire every fatal shot. He was sentenced.
Wow. 14 years is it? And listen, man, I'm gonna be like, yo, because he's on road. But like, at least he copped like to shit like, bro, I did some fucked up shit. All right, so I could at least respect that.
Sentenced to 14 years in prison. In March 2020, he was granted day parole, which was later extended in October 2020 for an additional 6 months. Bam Bam entered a guilty plea on January 23, 2015, to charges including counseling to commit murder, possession of a firearm, breach of a prohibition order, and uttering threats. He received a sentence of 9 years in prison, minus time already served. Although investigators found no direct evidence linking Bam Bam to Chaotic, the court determined that Bam Bam's threats to return to the party and shoot it up had significantly escalated tensions and put members of the Galloway boys on edge. In 2015, Gritty pleaded guilty to the attempted murder of Chaotic. Despite being a youth at the time, Gritty was sentenced as an adult to 7 years in prison and was released in January 2018.
Wow, all these guys got light sentences.
Chaotic maintained his innocence throughout a 7-week trial, pleading not guilty to charges including 2 counts of second-degree murder, attempted murder, aggravated assault, and reckless discharge of a firearm. Despite this, he was found guilty and on December 7, 2016, was sentenced as an adult to life in prison.
37 people were arrested during pre-dawn raids carried out across the GTA this morning. 23 guns seized.
The target, the Chester Lee street gang, who police believe was in the business of dealing fentanyl.
Zerata police say the Chester Lee gang has its roots right here in this Vic Park and Finch neighborhood. However, they allege the gang's activities extended right across the country. 700 police officers from 12 services were involved in the Project Kraken investigation, which targeted an East End street gang known as the Chester Lee gang.
While Malvern and Galloway dominated headlines, the violence didn't stay confined to those two names. Just south of those rival territories sat Chester Lee Boulevard, a pocket of Scarborough that rarely sought attention but was repeatedly pulled into the fallout. The Chester Lee crew is bred here, and they were never...
Salute to Genghis Khan, a.k.a. Camouflage. Original Chester Lee mans. Holy. When I saw Camo in this video, I forgot that he's one of those originals, bro.
A large or flashy operation, and it didn't carry the same reputation as Malvern or Galloway, but its location made neutrality impossible. In the mid-2000s, Chester Lee Boulevard was split down the middle in what residents would later describe as a quiet civil war, up top versus down bottom. The area known as up top centered around the townhouse complexes on Chester Lee Boulevard, and down bottom, referring to the Morecambe Gate complex just an 8-minute walk away. Despite being separated by less than 600 meters, these two blocks developed rival identities. Residents say that proximity only intensified tensions, turning everyday disputes into long-running violence that shaped daily life. One of the earliest and most extreme examples came in July 2001, when 20-year-old Benjamin Allen treated the Chester Lee complex as what prosecutors later described as his own turf. Believing he controlled the area, Allen enlisted friends to beat 20-year-old Damian Barnaby and chase him out of the complex. As Barnaby fled south towards the Morecambe Gate complexes, Allen emptied 11 rounds from a Glock 40 caliber handgun recklessly. One bullet struck Barnaby in the back of the head, killing him instantly, while others struck nearby homes. The case terrified the neighborhood so deeply that 3 Chester Lee families entered witness protection and moved out of the city. Allen was eventually convicted and later pleaded guilty to manslaughter, receiving a sentence equivalent to 17 years in prison. By 2005, that atmosphere of fear had become routine. According to a 2005 article published by Dearest Publishing, at least 5 shootings had already occurred on or near Morecambe Gate by mid-year. It began on August 5th, when Melbourne Glendon Whittick was shot in the abdomen while walking to a bus stop on Victoria Park Avenue after...
Yo, 2005 really was the year of the gun. 5 shootings in 1 year is crazy.
After attending a barbecue
in
at
one
the
area.
Morecambe Gate complex. Police believe the suspects may have targeted him for his gold chain. 1 month later, on October 25th, 2005, a 22-year-old man described as being known to police was shot in the upper torso near the complex just after 11 p.m. Fortunately, he survived. Less than a week later, the neighborhood was shaken again. In the early morning hours of November 2nd, a father of 2 was shot and killed at the front door of his townhouse at 51 Morecambe Gate. Residents identified the victim as Hasley McLean, known locally as Country, who was pronounced dead at the scene after being shot in the face and chest.
Damn.
Witnesses reported seeing 2 men dressed in dark clothing flee north through a nearby plaza and into a townhouse complex at 260 Chester Lee Boulevard. Over the following years, the tension never fully cooled. Neighbors openly described the killing as part of the ongoing up-top versus down-bottom turf war. One woman said she was afraid to open her door, explaining, "You don't know who's going to get it next." Another resident told reporters that gunshots were so common he heard them nearly once a week. Even a former...
These niggas are shooting at each other from like a block away type shit.
Ontario court judge, Judge Frank Lawform, who remarked that residents of the Chester Lee community could be forgiven for thinking they had woken up in Iraq. Chester Lee's up-top versus down-bottom conflict never received the same level of media attention as later Scarborough rivalries, but for those who lived through it, the damage was lasting. That quiet civil war eventually faded from the headlines, but it never truly ended, it evolved. As the
Yo, before they get to this last part of this video here, I've been living in Toronto since 97. And I've been on road, you know what I'm saying, for a lot of the time when I first got here, all up to the 2010s, I'll even say, okay? So it's not like I haven't been around my share of hood shit. But the city they call it a big small city, and I do know Camo or Genghis Khan, and I know a lot of different people from different areas. But some of these stories, when I hear them here on the Six Tails video, I'm like, where the hell was I? Maybe because I was on roads, I wasn't watching CP24 as much, but I do feel like I watched a lot of CP24. And maybe it didn't really penetrate or pause. Like, I didn't really take it in that all of these different things were happening at the same time. You feel me? Because now in hindsight, when I look at them all like put into like one video, I'm like, holy shit, the streets were crazy in the early 2000s and the late 90s and stuff like that. But like when you're living in it in real time, it don't feel as crazy. It doesn't feel like the year of the gun. You're just like, oh, shit's crazy. Oh, watch out when you go to the party. You know, some parties might get shot up. It's kind of wild. You just feel like that's just like a regular way of life. Now in hindsight, where technically they've brought down the crime a lot for in comparison to what we used to deal with back in those times, right? You look into, you say to yourself, well, shit, there was a lot of shootings in those times. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't safe to go to the club, and mans would still go to the club all the time. It just like, we just didn't feel it. You know what I'm saying? This is just me. I'm just venting just the hindsight of just living through that time and not feeling a sense of danger. Like, I didn't walk around like, yo, don't, you know, watch out, you might get shot. Like, obviously man's moved neatly, but at the same time, I didn't feel that quote unquote fear that they try to make you feel now through social media and all these different things. You feel me?
Top versus down bottom divide cooled. A new generation stepped in, carrying old tensions into new rivalries beyond Chester Lee itself. In recent years, Chester Lee aligned crews, including groups known locally as Top Goons and More Real, found themselves in open conflict with rivals from Parma Court. One of the most notable incidents happened on April 15, 2017.
I interviewed sick people.
When Toronto police issued a Canada-wide warrant for sick people, a Parma Court-based rapper, in connection with an alleged drive-by shooting that injured Top Goons members Uji and Pangs. The escalation was rapid. Just 2 days later, Samatar Farah, a Chester Lee resident and former George Brown College student, was killed in what police described as a case of mistaken identity.
Damn.
Following 11 coordinated raids, investigators arrested 2 Parma Court gang members in relation to the murder of Samatar. Alexander Fountain, also known as Bang 5, and Tawfiq Stanley, aka Vanish, were hit with 1 count of first-degree murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. Apart from block beefs, investigators have noted that Chester Lee gangs have begun expanding into something bigger and more organized. In 2019, they made headlines again, this time not in connection to a single shooting, but at the center of a province-wide criminal investigation.
Fuck off.
The way you see an idea in your...
Skippable. Good.
This is just one of 23 lethal weapons worth about $85,000 that police seized in a series of pre-dawn raids yesterday.
It's about money, and it's the motivation for money. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
700 police officers from 12 services were involved in the Project Kraken investigation, which targeted an East End street gang known as the Chester Lee Gang. 73 people are now facing 599 charges.
In a sweeping guns and gangs investigation known as Project Kraken, Toronto Police Service charged more than 70 people in connection with a violent tow truck turf war stretching across the Greater Toronto area. Police said the investigation...
Holy shit. The tow truck wars. Season said, get premium, brother. I had premium until these niggas came and hacked my freaking YouTube channel and my email address. Don't worry, I'm gonna get it together. I'm hacked. I'm currently sharing the channel with some people from, I don't know, Romania or something.
Uncovered firearms and drug trafficking linked to what they described as a younger and more volatile generation of Chester Lee aligned members and their associates. According to Deputy Chief James Raymer, intelligence tied the network to attempted murders, jewelry store heists, large-scale drug trafficking, and alleged contract killings across Canada. During the raids, Officers seized over $350,000 in drugs, $92,000 in cash, and 23 firearms.
Niggas
The
was getting to the
investigation
bag.
also highlighted how modern street crews now overlap with traditional organized crime, especially after Italian mobster Cosimo Commisso was arrested in the project. In more recent years, however,
Wow, these niggas had connections to the mob. Oh, let me chill.
Lee has become known for something very different: music. The block produced a new wave of rappers who helped define Toronto's modern sound, including Pains, Tutu, and 3M French. Their rise shifted attention away from police tape and toward playlists, as local stories were turned into records that traveled far beyond Scarborough. Their breakout song Griselda Blanco became a citywide moment, a track so widely recognized that many people in Toronto call it the city's national anthem.
Free the dogs and the demons. Take a trip to the east end.
For a block once known mainly for being caught in the crossfire, Chester Lee's emergence in music marked a turning point, proving that the same neighborhoods shaped by conflict could also shape the culture of the entire city. Blocks like Malvern, Galloway, and Chester Lee reflect the broader reality of Scarborough, a place constantly reduced to headlines, yet far more complex than the stories told about it. And to understand Scarborough's reputation today, you must understand how places like this lived through the past. This video isn't about glorifying the violence, it's about understanding where the narrative came from, and why it still follows the borough till this day.
Banger. Fuck this ad. Banger. Big salute to Six Tails right there for this video. And I do fuck with the fact that these guys were able to turn it around into music. Listen, big salute to Six Tails for that video. Go run up the views on his channel, on that video, and all his videos on his channel. And, you know, he also is always great at sourcing stuff from my channel as well and giving credit. So I fuck with Six Tails the long way. You know what I mean? Pause. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to check out these other videos on the screen and make sure to like and subscribe.
We love hip hop.